Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to actually talk about the brand new FARA 83. I was actually able to level it up to level 48, which is particularly important for a couple different reasons. One, it allows me to get access to the agency suppressor, which I believe is at level 46, and it allows me to get access to the last barrel so I can test bullet velocity. We're going to go through some various attachments and tell you whether or not this is going to fit into the meta as a brand new rifle being added as part of Season 2. Tier 15 within the free part of the battle pass. Enjoy the video, learn something new. Please do me a favor, hit that like button. Goal on today's video is 7,000 likes, so if hopefully you can help me hit that number. If you're brand new looking to find your way back, just double check. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. 57% of you out there haven't hit the subscribe button that are currently watching. So let's go ahead and get into it. So I did the basic strat. I did end up getting a win in my first match using the gun. If you want to go ahead and check out that gameplay, it's going to be over on my second channel, which is just JGOD Plays if you kind of want to see it in action. It wasn't fully maxed out. We're doing some leveling, and you'll see a little bit more of an explanation as we go over there. This is more just kind of some of the basic stats for the weapon. Let's go ahead and look at the damage profile, and then we'll get into recoil, which is incredibly important, where it should fit into the meta and how you could stack this so that you can combine your secondary with it, because I think it's going to end up being a sniper support weapon. So as I normally like to do with these things, I get some basic damage values, I get their rate of fire, I plug everything in, and I just plug in these yellow areas, and then everything solves itself and tells me the overall data. So right here, the headshot up close is 49, rest of the body is 33. At distance, we get the damage profile of 37, and then all the way down to 25. I didn't get another damage drop off, but this is a little bit harder to test against bots. 60 meters, I went up to this range, and that's where it was. But odds are, after you see how the recoil works on this weapon, you're not going to be using it beyond 60 meters. So that ends up with a 6 to 7 shots to kill if you only land to the head. Everywhere else, it's going to be 8 to 10 at 808 rounds per minute rate of fire. And that'll give you a TTK of 372, 520 at close range up to probably about 25 meters. I wasn't able to fully test. Depending on what barrel, we got to test the ranges. But you're going to see that that's not all that important as we get into it. And then the further range, 668, which is an insane TTK, especially if you start mixing in a couple headshots, it will drop that TTK. And just for comparison's sake, we'll go ahead and look at where that would rank it. 520 up close, 670 at range. So if we rank this against the other rifles, you can see that the FARA is over here. It'd probably take the 7th place spot, as close as close range TTK for the assault rifle category. As it drops off a little bit further, it's still pretty competitive, but it's going to be very hard to hit those shots at range. It'll melt depending on where that actual drop off is. You're going to be deleting people because of how fast this is. Obviously, this is a full auto weapon, so it's right up there with the AK-47, which really isn't used. A little bit slower than the AMAX, a little bit more recoil than the AMAX, but you can see it's pretty close up here with the FAR. If we compare this to the entire list of all guns, you can see that the FARA fits over here. It's probably the 9th fastest TTK for close range, and that includes all of the other SMGs, and the MAC-10 actually has a little bit slower TTK, but obviously you're going to deal with the mobility, same thing that you've had with the FFAR. So the FFAR is still going to be good TTK-wise. Obviously, we got to go ahead and test some attachments out, find out what else is changing, because it looks like there's been a ton of stealth changes that completely destroy some of the Cold War guns and are going to make people just really want to use the Modern Warfare guns a majority of the time. So now that we had an opportunity to look at that, the next thing that you're going to want to look at is bullet velocity. TTK looks good, close to medium range. You're going to be able to do well. As it gets further away, as you'll see, the recoil gets a little bit hard to control, but let's look at the bullet velocity. So overall, I tested this at 497 meters. This is how long it takes for that bullet to travel that time. 834 milliseconds. If you go ahead and convert that over to bullet velocity, it's 600, which falls in line with all the other Cold War rifles. And then we go ahead and go a little bit lower. And right here, you can see that these other ones aren't doing anything. They might help with a range, but obviously bullet velocity is king at making your bullets actually connect with the target. Contour is pretty good, 800 bullet velocity, and then we have over 1,000 with the ultralight, 72% increase, which is very significant. But one of the biggest changes they've made with this update is I still have to test all the other ones on different weapon classes, but they destroyed bullet velocity with the agency suppressor. They added, so they included the recoil reduction, which is kind of was a stealth ad that they had before that wasn't included, but was part of it. So they're messing stuff up here, but you're going to get a negative 40% to your bullet velocity, which will bring it down to terrible ranges. So if you put on a suppressor, automatically you're not gonna be able to use this weapon at range. Even if you're stacking it with the ultralight, it's just not gonna be enough bullet velocity. So you cannot run this pretty much with the suppressor if you're trying to use it for range. So you kind of forced to use it short to medium as your sniper support option. Maybe run it with the Kar 98 or something like that. That's really the only way I see this weapon being viable, and that'll reflect within the class setup. So this is pretty much me going in and testing the weapon, and you can kind of see me testing how the bullet recoil pattern is. This is the recoil pattern right here on the left hand side. You can see it kind of has this S shape. This was kind of point blank with me max out the attachments. I was using just the blueprint because I was testing out in a private match. Then I actually went into a real match after I kind of leveled things up. And then I was actually able to shoot the wall, as you can see here. We'll take a zoom in screenshot of it once I get a little bit closer. But this is kind of the testing method. And you can see this recoil already offhand. This thing is incredibly broken. So let's go ahead and take a little bit more of a zoomed in approach. All right, so here we are zoomed in, and you can see these recoil blots back to back. We have the base one that goes far up and to the right and then hooks hard left. This will never be a recoil pattern that is going to be good at range. No matter your recoil control, there might be occasions where you hit somebody at a distance if you tap trigger or whatever, but this will never be the long range option regardless of how good it is in any other way. So it kind of has to be used as a short to medium. Keep in mind that when you use the agency, you're obviously going to have a suppressor, destroyed bullet velocity, and then you get a little bit less vertical recoil, which isn't even that hard to control. I go ahead and equip the foregrip, which is for horizontal, and then field agent, which is for vertical and horizontal. And you can see there's not a huge difference happening. Obviously, there's a little bit happening there. There is one last grip, which I did not unlock because it is even a higher level than I got to. But even then, this is way too far out of the realm, considering that even the FFAR before this update, I don't know what it is now, it kind of had a little bit of S-curve, but it was mostly vertical and controllable. So I think this kind of destroys some of those options. Build agent does look like it's helping, just not going to be enough for you to beam people at 100 meters like you could with the Kilo, the Growl, the Bruin, and a lot of other low recoil, legitimately low recoil weapons. So yes, the TTK is insane, and I think this weapon could be used, but I think people are just going to lean towards other weapons that do it just a little bit easier, primarily because the recoil and the agency suppressor. I think those two factors are a little bit hard for people to get over. I think a lot of people can get over the fact that, hey, you know what, use this short to medium range. You don't have to use a suppressor, use something else. You get an extra attachment, maybe a hipfire laser to help with the hipfire. But I think the second part, the recoil, is just a deal breaker. Even for the highest skilled players, that's just going to add a little bit too much inconsistency to your gunfight, which is going to cause you to lose gunfights. Keep in mind that the headshot damage is ridiculous on this thing. That being said, I think the build that you kind of got to use for this is probably the ultralight, just so you get the best bullet velocity possible. It'll feel a little bit closer to hit scan. You go with the field agent grip, and then we're going to go ahead and use the munitions. I would use the 60 round fast mags, but I don't currently have those, so I kind of would go with the regular 60 round mag. No optic on this thing since you're going to be using it short to medium range. You can go ahead and put on the last stock, which isn't currently unlocked, but I would go with the Spetsnaz PKM stock, which is going to a little bit hurt your hip fire. Obviously, you're going to get that insane movement, strafe speed. And then you got a couple different options here. If you really want optic, you can go with the reflex. That's cool. You want to go with the rear grip. I have not had an opportunity to test these just because they're usually within one frame. So it's near impossible to test the difference on some of them. And then I would go with the SOF target designator currently until I would unlock the Ember sight. Maybe you get a different option there. But this one that has really good positives. Obviously, you get a little flashlight that's visible to enemies. But the hipfire spread is going to be a little bit tighter and actually increases your effective range, which I have not been able to test the actual range. But since you're using this point blank, I don't think it really matters. And this would end up being the ugly class setup, but it is what it is. So hopefully you guys did enjoy the video, learned something new. If you did, please do me a favor, hit that like button. I plan on doing the SMG as soon as I can. Obviously, there's way more damage drop-offs, but quick snapshot, its TTK falls in the Bullfrog range. It's laser accurate, so it's going to be good in that sense, but not better or worse than the Bullfrog. So it's going to kind of just sit there. Mac 10 is still going to be the dominant one. Obviously, we got to go and look at some of these suppressor issues. So we're going to have a follow-up video. So make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. I do appreciate all the support you guys show on the content. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.